And I have a chat open so that Anna's in a place where there's a lot of background noise. So uh, Anna will interact with us via typing. And what we're going to cover tonight is the structure and skin assignment is not due on Sunday. It's due the following Sunday. And what I want to do is talk about it quite a bit so people can work on it. And I am hoping very much that people will be able to get some stuff online and uh, so we can look at it for Wednesday's class, see how people are progressing. Uh, when I was talking about the assignments and everything, when I look at the images and I critique them, when we talk about photography, being more aware of surroundings and things like that, what I'm talking about is uh, you guys deserve to have your work represented the very best that you can. And part of that is taking good images of it. But I want everybody to remember that everything you turn in can be worked on and resubmitted right up through the end of the semester. So when we talk about stuff like that, like if you've gotten a great score on everything, but the photography is just not there, I get that sometimes people are taking photos, like a couple people were out of town and got the stuff done anyway, which I think is pretty amazing. But they took the photos with what they had available at the moment. So they still got it in so we can still look at it. With the fact that everybody can resubmit and rework their assignments throughout the entire term, if you're missing points for a photo, just retake the photo and resubmit it. I mean, that's one of the things that we're talking about in this class. So I'm not saying at all on any level, I'm sorry you missed out, your grade's going to suck. What I am saying is these are things to improve. So if you want more points, just, redo this portion of it and resubmit it. I think that's an important story to remember because last semester somebody was working on this assignment. Their first iteration, there was no module, there was no uh, use of space. Everything was very flat and it looked really smushed. So I critiqued on that. The person turned around and built up the flat things into actual three-dimensional modules, but it was still not there. So I said, yeah, this is looking better. These are the things that look better. This is what needs to be worked on. They turned around, reworked it again, and we went back and forth like that about 5 or 6 times. And at the end, the thing that they turned in was really exceptional. So as we're doing this, I'm not critiquing stuff. We're not talking about each other's work, and you're never get a chance to fix it. I'm doing that specifically so that you can improve the work that you're doing to fit better the parameters of the assignment and get the full points. And I need everybody to remember that because just like the classes that I teach, I want you to learn from critique, re-examine the assignment, rework stuff. If you realize in a month from now that you um, could have done a better job on something, go back and rework on it, or whatever. It doesn't hurt me at all to have you guys get better. And I want everybody to remember that. So if you're one of the people that um, emailed me about photos or the assignments or anything like that, it doesn't matter why the things didn't work out the way that you wanted them to, because you have opportunities to go back and fix it and present your work the way you want it to be. Frederick Douglass, who is the most recognized and photographed celebrity from North America in the 20th century, said that the true miracle of photography is it allowed everybody to display themselves for the world to remember them the way they wanted to be seen. And I think that that's a really wonderful way to look at it. I want you guys to have your works graded ultimately and recognized for how you want them to be seen. So, and that's why we do this the back and forth. So if you get 22 out of 25 on something, there is no reason not to go back, rework it, turn it back in, let me email me that you did it, and then get more points. That doesn't hurt me at all. Right. So do both of you guys understand that?
Yes.
Okay. All right. Excellent. Very good. Okay. Something that has been coming up, and I don't understand what is going on. It's really irritating me. I'm going to try to work with tech support this week and get it fixed. Is at the beginning of the term, almost everybody saw all the images in the quizzes, and as the term has progressed, like a couple of weeks ago, I was seeing everything, but some people were saying that they couldn't see the images in the quizzes, and then uh, other people said this last week that they couldn't see anything at all. And it seems the problem seems to be getting worse. So I re-uploaded images. This is what the quiz looks like for me. And if you guys are having problems with any of the images, a couple people emailed me. That's why I went back and I'm working on this. And I thank you for letting me know. But I've done everything I can at my end, so I don't know what's going on, and that's why I'm going to have to talk to tech support and see what is going on. But I wanted to show you something. If you need to get the quiz done and for whatever reason the image is not working, every time there's an image, there's either going to be like a video or at the very least, we're going to put the person's name and the title of the work there so you can find it yourself. And I'll show you an example of this in just a second. If you look up the person's work and it is not showing you what I am showing you in the quiz, uh, and that's why I ding you a couple points for it. Just email me and say, hey, this is the image that I found on the internet because the one in the quiz wasn't working. And then, you'll if you did everything you were supposed to, you get your points back. But this also, in addition to updating the image, we also have a video on this one. And then going down here, this is a not the original image of the large reclining figure by Henry Moore. And if we copy that and put that into a search engine, let's say for whatever reason you can't see that sculpture, then let me show you this. You can look up the artist and the title and find several examples. And for this one, this is the sculpture that we were looking at. This is what is in that image, and I'll show that to you really quick. See, it's the same sculpture, but the sculpture is popular enough that there are several copies of it around the world, and there's a bronze one and there's a steel one. So there are different versions of it. And so if you do a site image search for that, you can see right here, there's three different color versions of it. But then also, this sculpture is called large reclining figure. And you can see it is not the same shape as this one. They're two different ones. And that's why I'm saying if you find an image, just in the quiz, just say something along the lines of, hey, the image was not coming through, so I had to find it, and this is a link to the image I found. You put that up at the beginning, and then you do your answer afterwards. And that's the best way to make sure you've got all the points if the images are not working. Now, I particularly noticed it right here. This sculpture is called Lit Match by Mark D. Severo, And lit match is actually the name given to a series of sculptures. And I'll show you, they do have a couple things in common, but they're not all identical. And so this would be if you get to question number 6 and you're going to choose number 1 as your subject matter, then include a link to the particular version, the image of the image that you use. And I want to show you this. This is the image. I hope you guys can see that, right? The top left-hand side, that's the image that's in the quiz. All right. But when I did a search for lit match, all these are showing up too. And these are definitely not that same one. The thing that's common to all of them is they look like they're about ready to fall over. Looks like the air is holding them up. They're all made with massive steel I-beams that are painted red. And that's the unifying thing. At least these ones are. And these ones they're all made with giant I-beams and they all kind of feel like they're pushing against the air.
I have a question.
Yeah.
The art pieces that are in the quiz, are they in the textbook?
Sometimes not.
Okay, because like now that you're talking about this, I don't think I've ever seen images in any of
Like
the quizzes that I've taken. And so
this
I'm just
one,
like, I think I've only ever utilized the textbook. And if I couldn't find it in the textbook, I just guessed because I didn't want to cheat and use the internet.
well, it's not cheating because you if you have to find the image, you have to find the image. So this Adam Thomas is not in the textbook. This might be one of Henry Moore's sculptures is in the textbook. I don't know if it's this one.
Okay.
And definitely know for sure that Brian Draper's stuff is not in the textbook.
Well, I think that might be why I got some of those questions wrong. Because I
Well,
was looking
that's
up
what I'm saying.
from the
Go
textbook.
back, go back and do a search for the artist name and the name of the piece
Interesting.
and see what you can find. I've told you guys from the beginning, these are all open book. So the only way to really cheat is by having somebody else do the test for you. You know,
Oh,
and
I guess
so
other
finding
professors, when they say
internet is
open
just
book,
fine.
they meant like open textbook, not open internet.
I want you guys to find the images and go to them. So if they are not showing up for you, do an internet search and find the closest thing you can. And if you have to do that, just put the link down in your answer so I know which image you found. Because there should have every time I talk about the sculptures, there should be an image there. And if there's not, let me know so I can fix it. And several of you have. I've been trying to fix it, and it's not the fix is not working. So that's why I'm saying that's why I'm going through this. I want you guys, I don't want you to be frustrated and irritated. So yeah, if you got a question wrong and it's because of the image, go find the right one or find an image that matches that artist and the artwork name. So and with like the quizzes with everything else, if you didn't get a perfect score on the quiz, you can always go back and retake it. You do have to resubmit the entire quiz. So I would recommend taking screenshots of all your answers so you can just copy them down because Canvas will overwrite every previous submission with the new submission that you make. And I want you guys to make sure Canvas will store your answers until you request to have them removed from the university system or until the university loses its accreditation. And I want you guys to have a permanent record of your work. So those are a couple reasons. Excuse me. Did I answer all your questions, Kelsey?
Yes.
What's that? Okay.
Yes, you did.
Good. So this is what I'm saying. It's important for you guys to let me know because this is what I'm saying. And you can see all the images are perfect in my view. And that's why I'm saying I'm totally confused as to why they are not coming through for you people, for you guys.
Yeah,
Now
that must
this question,
be really frustrating for you too.
well, and I do appreciate people telling me, but I don't. I'll have to talk to tech guys, like I said, and figure out how we can get that to work. Another thing on this quiz, this is the third quiz, says question 10, or a quiz for module 3 rather. The answer that you need to give for this is we need to have a statement about each of the three figurative works. So, and I've reworded this many, many times. It's basically what is the emotional response to scale for, monumental, life size, and miniature. And, if you want to, you can say almost anything you want as long as you're responding to that. Like somebody said, hey, for the baby, I'm really, really disturbed seeing, a 20-foot tall baby laying on her side. It throws me way out of my comfort zone. And the miniature one, I think, is almost humorous because it's so tiny. But then the guy sitting on the bench, I wonder how many people have seen Dwayne Hanson's work and tried to get a reaction until they finally realize that it's a sculpture, not a human being. That and that's a perfectly acceptable type of answer because you've addressed each of the three scales. And here, this is Antony Gormley's Angel of the North sculpture, and I want people to figure out which is more important, the structure of the skin. But it does not matter which of those you choose. I don't care. I don't care what your opinion is. What I care about is your capacity for precision when you're explaining what your opinion is. This is one of the reasons why when we look at tools of artistic critique, that page, remember this is for the assignment that isn't due until April, but I want you guys to be comfortable with it now because as you go through and look at things through this lens, describing it, analyzing it, interpreting it, and then evaluating it, and you use these words, it helps you be incredibly precise. And it makes you look incredibly smart too. So, again, I do not care what your opinion is, but I do care an awful lot about how you present yourself and articulate and share your opinion. I want you guys by the end of the term, I want you guys to be so confident in this vocabulary and in this way of thinking that it doesn't matter what situation you're in, you can give your opinion with confidence in such a way that nobody can assail it. I don't want you to have to doubt yourself, and I don't want you to feel like it's okay for other people to doubt you as well. So, again, it doesn't matter what the opinion is. That doesn't matter. What doesn't matter is how you organize your thoughts as you talk about your opinion. And I'll give a demonstration of the difference. If somebody shows you the work and you don't like it, most of us are just going to find some non-committal thing to say and avoid the subject and walk away. But with this kind of precise language and thinking, you can say to the person, it really looks to me like this is important to you because it's obvious you spent time putting this together and you had thought into it. What concerns me a little bit though is when I look at this, I see this section here and it's obvious you are a master at your skill set. But over here, it doesn't feel like it's the same thing, but it doesn't communicate that that's how you want it to read. And so what I'm wondering is this really what you are trying to say? Is this really what you're trying to communicate? Or does something else need to happen to demonstrate the same high level of skill throughout, high level of craftsmanship throughout, so we know that every element is on purpose? Then it would make more sense to me. Now, I've still totally dodged the question. I didn't tell them that it sucked, but they're walking away. They're feeling like, holy crap, this person is really seeing my work, for one thing. And second, you've helped them. You've pointed out what the issue is. You're not telling them that their choice is wrong. You're not telling them they did a bad job. What you are telling them is, I want to be able to communicate with you, and I want you to be able to communicate with me. And I'm afraid that as your collaborator, I don't know if that's coming through the way you want it to. And that completely changes the dynamic. Now you're their collaborator. You're helping them succeed, and you're not just another person in class saying, "Oh, this sucks." Do you see what the difference is? And that's what's that?
Oh, sorry, I was just saying yes. Just answering you. Sorry.
Can you still hear me?
Yes. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can. Everything froze up all of a sudden, and I was
Oh,
just wondering.
okay.
Okay.
Sounds good.
So does that make sense to you
Yeah.
guys as to why we do this?
Yeah.
Well,
It actually is
Um,
kind of cool because I feel like it can apply to just communicating to anyone about anything in general.
well, I'm friends with. Oh, hey, Liv joined us. Excellent, very good.
Hey.
I'm friends. Hey, I'm friends with one of the heads of the nursing department, and I found out from some of their students they were doing this class as well, and I have been told by them that it was astounding because it dramatically increased their effectiveness in their jobs as nurses. Just being because when they're able to apply this kind of close looking to a situation in the hospital, the patient's confidence in their treatment is exponentially raised, but they also form a really tight bond immediately with the patient and their family, or the people that are caring for them. And the level of trust makes it so that they become a much more effective lifesaver.
Yeah.
And this also holds true. A couple people have been auto mechanics. Same kind of thing. It holds true for them that they're able to uh, not only help other people improve their work, but be more targeted in their own work and be more successful. And this is a conversation I had several years ago with Courtney, head of the art department. And I think this is one of the reasons why she really pushed for this vocabulary to be present in these classes because she wants all the artists to have this kind of skill set. So, you guys have valuable voices. You should be able to have them taken seriously by other people.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
Now, I am trying to find the next thing I wanted to show you. Ah, yes, here we go. Okay. Every term, I'll have like upwards of 100 students or so. And out of the less, maybe three or four, who are confused about things. And I don't know exactly why that is. I think that the way that I write and communicate, it works with most people who are artists because most artists are just a little bit off kilter. And I think maybe I fail to communicate fully with the people that are more normal. So, which I guess is a nice way of saying that if you don't understand what I'm telling you, then you're probably too normal to be an artist. Yeah, I want to I just every once in a while it's really good to clarify things. And I think more often than not, it's just because when we are working on stuff, we get so hyper focused, we just miss some of the elements. And I think that's what's really going on. Because all of you guys have had that experience where you realize all of a sudden that somebody's been talking to you for the last half an hour and your foot's asleep because you were so involved in what you were doing, you haven't even moved, let alone breathed for the last half an hour. All of us have done that because we're artists. We can't help it. That's what we do. But what I wanted to do is talk about some of the background artists for this next module that we're working on. And this module, Structure with the Skin, we touched on a little bit last week. We are building scaffolding and then the covering, but doing it in such a way that both of them feel equally important. Both the structure and the skin feel equally important, and it activates the volume of space around it. And the constraints for this assignment is everybody's going to build anywhere from 5 to 8 modules that are about the size of your fist. You have popsicle sticks and stuff in your kit, but you can also use, you can buy a bag of 200 skewers at Walmart for 88 cents or something. You know, you can use those. I've had people make the skin out of crochet material for some of the skin panels, while other people have done, I mean, one of the coolest was somebody used, they're like heat guns or something. It's not a blow dryer, but it gets so hot you can wrap something with saran wrap, plastic wrap, zap it with the heat blower, and then it melts some of it and crinkles it up, and then do another coating. And a couple of people, what they did was for their skin, they would wrap it with plastic wrap, put paint on it, hit it with the heat dryer, the heat gun, and then wrap it with plastic wrap again. And it was a really fantastic skin. And I've also had other people, you guys have all seen the paints that you can paint on a like plastic and then peel it off of plastic and it's kind of translucent. People have done that. I had some people do shrinky dinks, kind of like they did for the windows in the houses. Just so there's a lot of fun ways to do the skin. And what I would not recommend, one of the most frustrated students actually used angel hair pasta and dried seaweed. You know, the snack where you get the seaweed flakes that are like this big. And she got very angry because every type of material she used to try to hold it together broke the noodles or destroyed the seaweed. So I would say don't use noodles and seaweed. And then for sticking stuff together, I want you to think about, you know, hot glue. Yeah, you can do that. Gorilla glue. Yeah. There's different kinds of cements you can use. Like there's Gorilla Cement even, or super glue if you can get it to work. Super glue doesn't work too well on really porous materials, so wood is less effective unless you coat the wood with super glue first, let that dry completely, and then glue it together. But some other things I want you to think about is I've had students where they put a little bit of hot glue with the glue gun on it, then wrap the thing with string, and it made for a really interesting joint. Other people have used gum, which is kind of disgusting, but you know, it works. And toothpaste can even work. If you use the cream toothpaste, not the transparent stuff, not the gel, you use cream toothpaste. And I think the best one is either Colgate or Crest. They're both pretty good, but you use the Dollar Tree equivalents of those two, and it will tear off drywall. Once it is dried, it takes a long time to dry, but if you have your modules together and you kind of hold them together with tape until that stuff dries, it will not go anywhere. That is pretty permanent stuff, which is kind of makes me sick to my stomach when I think about how much I've accidentally swallowed brushing my teeth over the years. But since I've only brushed my teeth 17 times, not that much.
Do you have any like student examples or pictures of what you're kind of looking for that you've shown us in past projects? Oh,
I heard, do you have? And then the computer froze.
photos. Do you have any photo examples of past projects? Oh,
Yeah, I want to show you guys. That's what I want to do is we're going to look at some of the background artists, and then I want to show you what students from this class last year did.
oh, also,
Eh,
Anna posted a question in the chat. I don't know if you saw that.
We can color the sculpture. Yes, absolutely. Several people last year use colored paper, colored straws for their structure, but I've had other people do layers of spray paint, which is kind of neat. If you're using something like that plastic, there's kind of this corrugated plastic or just plastic paper, and you could spray paint it on it, but the paint kind of peels away. Do a couple layers of that, and that can look kind of cool. But people have spray painted. They have done like tie-dye effects. I even had somebody use the dry powder tie-dye and like sprinkle that on the stuff and color it with that. So yeah, coloring. If you want to do use color, that is totally fine.
Is this kind of like paper mache, but
No.
but you're thinking outside of that?
Yes.
Okay,
This is not, we are not doing paper mache at
not
all.
paper mache, but like it, but different.
No,
No,
nope.
I don't
And
think.
you'll see examples. We're not doing paper mache at all.
Okay,
Paper mache, the closest we could possibly come to that is if you use tissue paper, put tissue paper on your material, and then use a decoupage paint to go over the tissue paper to make it translucent. And that still is not paper mache at all.
okay. So you want it to be translucent?
No,
No.
it
Okay.
can be. You can do that, but it doesn't have to be.
I'm just so grateful for when you show us examples because I don't think
Yes.
I fully understand what's going on until you do.
Yeah, I will show you examples in just a little bit. First,
Okay, thank
we're going
you.
to look at some of the background stuff.
Okay.
Now, these background artists, this last year, YouTube has really ramped up how easy it is to get shut down with copyright violation. So I want all of you to watch these videos, but we are not going to be watching the videos as part of the class because I'm not going to get dinged on it. And what I do want to do is show you some imagery of their work, and we'll talk about each of these artists for just a short while. And then when you do your background section, before you do your essay, I want you to watch all these videos. So I'm going to get plugging in the person's name. Okay. So this is David Smith. And this kind of reminds me of some of the line work, and I think it was Oliveira. I'm not entirely sure from last module where the person took it would look like flat pieces of metal carved in interesting shapes and then put stuff together. That almost looks like to me what David Smith is doing with a couple of these sculptures. But one of the things that I want you to be aware of is look at this not as an agglomeration of blocks, but think of it through the lens of structure with skin. So the structure is the edges of the blocks or whatever's inside. And the skin is, of course, the stainless steel that is wrapping that structure. So we can see the structure as it exists in holding up the skin. And a lot of his work, David Smith's work, you're going to see that there's something underlying that holds the shape of these objects. And I want you to look at them through that kind of a viewpoint. So it's not just Lego blocks, being put together to make something, but there is an underlying support to this. And you can see that in some of these, it's a lot more obvious that underlying support than others. And that video, I think that the video that was chosen for this portion is a really good one that talks about this. Now, the lint mat sculpture is by a guy named Mark D. Suervo. I believe he's Italian. And let's see, give me just a second here. When we look at his work, I want you to look at this again, that lens of structure and skin. The structure, for me, the structure looks like we have these are all I-beams, And the narrow parts at the top and bottom of the I-beam seem to be the structure, and the skin is the steel that connects those two. And some of these, the skin is minimal, like right through here. It's, just in the I-beams. Some of them, it starts becoming a little bit more apparent, like in this one, where he's actually applying a sheet of metal over on top of the I-beam. And we can see that back through here as well. And some of them are a lot less apparent. Like here, you almost miss the skin because it's mostly horizontal to the viewer. But we can still kind of see that. And we still have that wide space in between the narrow parts of the I-beams. So that's another way of interpreting this idea.
Can I ask you a question with that last piece where you said we almost missed the skin? Um, what's the differentiation between the beams and the skin? Like, what makes it skin, I guess? Did I ask
Well, in
that?
this, I,
Well,
I want you to look at it through that lens of what could be the skin.
okay.
And so the obvious, like right here, the obvious skin is, of course, these sheets of metal,
Okay.
they loop around. Less obvious is this I-beam right here. The top of it is only about 14 inches wide. The bottom of it is only about 14 inches wide. And the flat area that connects the top and bottom of the I-beam, or the spine of the eye, is about 2 feet. And so that becomes functioning as the skin. For this piece, the skin is going to be obviously the sheet right here that makes these little loops, and then less obviously the wider parts of the I-beam.
Okay.
So that's how we're looking
So
at it.
what you're saying.
But this one, not so much. I mean, there's not here. We don't have the I-beam, and if we try to look at it through the structure and skin kind of lens, what I'm seeing is some of these panels of wood are more flat, so maybe that's more of the skin, and then maybe the edges are going to function as the structure a little bit, but this one is a little bit harder to categorize.
I see. Okay.
And I think in the videos kind of were picked because they kind of deal with these ideas a little bit closer.
Okay.
And so, I'm not showing you prime examples of everything I want you to see. What we're talking about is a way of looking at things. And then when we go and make the thing, we're going to be more in control of how we see the structure and skin. And so for those previous artists, I think they're heavily weighted on the structure part of this equation. And here, Richard Serra, if we look at this, they're basically gigantic sheets of metal. The structure is only really obvious to me on that inch thick edge of these gigantic metal sheets. And he curves those edges just enough so it supports the I'm support sorry, it supports the weight of the entire sheet of steel. So the skin is all the flat surface, and the supporting structure is really basically just the edges. So this guy is doing, we can, if we apply the structure and skin kind of lens to this guy's work, it is as opposed to the others, these are almost entirely skin. And he did some really interesting things. He makes these, if you just had a little sheet of steel, nobody'd care. But you make it so these things are 20 feet tall. And all of a sudden they become gigantic. They become emotionally resonant. People could start thinking, well, if the giants that made Stonehenge worked in raw steel, maybe it would look like this. But this, I think, is kind of interesting. This was a 40-foot long wall. Richard Serra was commissioned by LA County to make a sculpture. And they just had him design it and everything. And he designed it and built it after talking to uh, people that represented the voters in LA County. And they felt that the government was ignoring the will of the voters. And so his piece was this 40-foot wall. And you look at that, yeah, there's a fountain right here, but out of frame, the right out here are the steps leading up to the county courthouse. So it blocked the view of the front of the building and it made it so that people had to go out of their way to get inside. It didn't block it enough that it was illegal, still fit all the parameters that he was given. But he shows up one day and the county had hired people to start cutting it apart because they were going to move it. And he actually won a massive lawsuit that now makes it so that if somebody commissions you to do an artwork and they give you permission to build it, you follow all their parameters, they cannot move or change the artwork
That's
without your direct involvement.
that's amazing.
Yeah. So, which means that, if there's a flood or something like that, artists have come up and said, yeah, let's move it, let's get out of the way. But
Right.
for stuff like this, um, that also makes it so that if you do something that 99 out of 100 people love, and then you get the one wacko that says, "Oh no, this is pornographic," that word is used by people that just want to cause a stir sometimes because they're unable to define it. They just know it's offensive. And I don't know. I've actually heard people try to use that to sue different cities to have churches remove their steeples. So,
Wow. I've
yeah,
never heard that before.
you know,
That's
and
crazy.
so we can see like this is the wall that I was talking about.
Okay.
You see the fountain and then the stairs. This is a 40-foot wall that is about 12 feet high. And it just, but can you imagine? I mean, if you go to a museum like this, where it's this huge hall is filled with Richard Scarra's sculptures, there is a definite structure to them,
Yeah.
but almost all that you can see is skin, and they feel it is a simple form, but it feels incredibly profound because it is so gigantic, I think.
Yeah, and
You know,
it's so
they,
elegant in how it moves. It's just beautiful.
but it is definitely a different lens to use when looking at things.
Yeah, I agree.
Okay. The next guy we're going to look at is Steve Tobin, and I'm trying to go through these as quick as I can so you guys can see the different kind of stuff that people do. Now, we talk about, okay, here's a good example of structure and skin where the skin is almost all you see, but you can kind of see the structure right through here where those surfaces kind of touch each other. And these are mirrors, they're reflecting the sky. And then right here, the structure and skin, it feels to me like this is way on the right, it's really weighted towards skin. On the left, it's really weighted towards structure. You have these gigantic organic coral forms, and the structure is the thing that's holding it up. And all we can tell the structure is there is because the skin that's over it. And in some of these that are skinnier, maybe that structure is a little bit more apparent. In others that are wider, maybe the skin is a little bit stronger. But he plays a lot with those kinds of things, and then he'll do stuff like this where there's no real skin here. This isn't solid, but things are packed close enough together that when you stand at this angle, all you can see is a solid object. Or you'll look at this. Um, some of these almost feel like this one. I think is a good example where it feels like the air is kind of stretching around it, and I just think it's really interesting. So a lot of the skin that this guy works with feels to me like it's implied, but it is very interesting to me to look at his work from that structure and skin kind of lens. And here it's a little bit more obvious. We have skin right here at the top, skin at the bottom, but most of this appears to me to be structure. And again, your work is the challenge you guys have is finding that balance so that both feel equally important. Now, Anish Kapoor is another guy I particularly like his audacity. he does stuff that is uh, pretty amazing. Now, where that other guy, Steve Tobin, is doing stuff that feels like the skin is implied, a lot of the stuff that Anish Kapoor does makes it to me feel like the structure is implied. Now, the structure is this thin edge, and then you have the material or the skin stretched around that curving edge. That structure almost is completely gone, and all you have is the skin. And he really works on it with this. You can see some of that structure with the panels and everything, but that structure, you know it's underneath there because it's supporting the skin. Now, some of these, the balance I think works a little bit better. Like right here, the structure is obviously the cube and the edge, but then he does these other things where the skin is stretched over the form and then goes through the cube. So it does this really interesting convoluted thing as the skin itself is responding to the shape of the structure. And I really like these two pictures. These are the same, this is the same sculpture. And you can see right here the structure, these bars that are holding and supporting the whole object. And then you see the edge of the skin right here is stretched over the whole object. And right here, just by walking around to the front of it or to a different view of it, completely changes. Now all we see is the skin with the shadows of the ribbing. And so that this sculpture, I think for Honest Kapoor stuff that we looked at, I think this sculpture is the best example of trying to approach that balance between structure and skin. And we're gonna look at Martin Purrier, and Richard Deacon really quick here. Okay, here we go. And this guy is doing something that I think is really fascinating. Because in a lot of these, yeah, you can see the buildup. The skin is not really something that's overlaid. It is actually the exterior component of those structural components that are solid. In this example, in this one, it looks like the skin is overlaid because we have this kind of wooden structure that it looks like the skin is tied to. And then if we look at some of these, you start going around, and here, if you can imagine in your mind's eye walking around this, it's obvious that it's only made with these structural pieces. But can you imagine walking around where it almost feels like the skin is starting to show up? And I want this, I think, is a perfect example of what I'm talking about. This is two images of the same sculpture. Here's from the side, we can see all the structure. It's entirely structure. And then here, as we walk around it, Martin Purrier, the way that he builds this is when you start walking around it, it turns from light and airy to feeling very solid because the structural components start appearing and registering as skin. Um, Anna and Liv, can you kind of see what talking about when we look at this sculpture through that lens of balance of structure and skin? Can you guys see how these two pieces relate to each other and why changing the angle makes it look like this is now a skin? Okay, Liv, you say yes. Excellent. Very good. That's one of the reasons why I get excited with a lot of these artists because they just have different ways of looking at these ideas. Like here, the structure is very much inside of this. And if you get up close, you can see how the skin is stretched over it. And then here, the structure is kind of exploded out and it's all entirely structure. But as you get closer, if you can imagine getting closer to this right edge or that far edge, the way that the structure is built, it starts feeling more and more like a solid object. And I think that that's absolutely fascinating. Okay, and then Richard Deacon does something very similar. We're going to look at his artwork next. All right. Now, some of these are just, it just looks like almost just balloons. But the things that I want you to look at and really focus on are these kinds of shapes. Like Martin Purier, Richard Deacon has done something very similar, where it's all structure, but as you walk around it, you start, your eye and mind start filling in the gaps so it feels like it's a tube, it's a functional tube. And this one I think is a little bit more obvious because he's put a skin resting on the surface of it. But a lot of these objects, you look at this kind of thing, and even though you know intellectually, you know that this is all just structure, it's just spine and bones, you start looking at it from different angles and it starts developing this almost implied skin that feels tangible. And I think that that's really amazing. Now, he does a lot of stuff that feels very organic. This one is only structure, and this one I think only feels like skin with the structure being just the braces and the outside edges. But I think he's explored some really fascinating things. Like this one, I want to see, if you make a shape like this, how many structural pieces do you have to put in before the mind switches and starts seeing it as a skin? Or where do you have to stand in the gallery to start seeing it that way? I think that's really fascinating. Now, last, we're going to look at two architects. And just as some of these artists really seem to weigh in on the skin side, and some of them weigh in really heavily on the structure side, these artists, these two architects, it seems like this first one is really heavy towards skin, and then the next one is really heavy towards structure. But they both are very aware of both of these kinds of things. So the first one is the first architect is Frank Gehry, and he talks about his work as loving the shape of folded blankets. He wants people to feel comfortable. And he uses materials, he uses stone, he uses brick, he uses titanium, stainless steel, like in the uh, Disney Opera House that he did. But you look at these kinds of structures that he makes, it's just amazing to me because they feel like they're blown in the wind. And it's almost entirely paying attention to that. It feels to me that the most important thing for him is the skin. But when we look at these, I think you can really see in some of these where the structure comes in. And I'm trying to find an image of the where you can see both. Okay, here's a good image where you can see right here in between those panels gives you an idea of where the structure is. And he's done some things where you can look underneath and see where the supports are. Like in through here, if you look up underneath, you'll see where the supports are. Now, you don't see that at the same time you're seeing the skin all the time. There are some buildings where he does that, but it's fascinating to me that he loves, like at this one, you can see both the structure underneath and the skin. It just looks like flowing loops of ribbon. And I think that that's fantastic. I can't believe that these are really real buildings that exist on this planet. I just think it's incredible. And then another one of my, how many of you guys have been to Epcot Center in Disney World in Florida? Has anybody been there?
No. Be cool though.
Well, I hope you guys know which one I'm talking about. It's the gigantic geodesic dome, and I am old enough to remember when it was a big deal, when it was unveiled. So that was decades ago. But this is what Buckminster Fuller does. He's the guy that invented the geodesic dome, where it's a dome that's made out of intricate triangles put together, and it is the only architectural structure in the world that we're aware of in the last 20,000 years that gets stronger as it gets bigger. And in here, if we look at both the structure and the skin, I'm hoping you can see where the skin is. It's glass, but between structure and the skin, for him, what's obvious is the most important element to him between the structure and the skin.
Structure.
Yeah, absolutely. So we can tell the skin is there because it's reflective, but his most important element is by far the structure. Now, Epcot Center, I believe, is all white, so the skin is really important. I don't know if you guys have seen a movie, Mia Jovovich. It's called Ultraviolet. She's a vampire in a future world,
Yeah,
and the ultimate fight takes place in a Buckminster Fuller geodesic dome, and they
that's
play
awesome.
on that idea of structured skin. So if anybody wants extra credit, and I'm so pleased, Kelsey, that you watched Ultraviolet, and you know about it, and I hope the smile means that you enjoyed it.
Yeah, it's
But
good.
uh, if anybody wants extra credit, watch that whole movie and then use the tools of artistic critique to explain how that movie supports the idea of structure and skin with that last fight scene in the geodesic dome. And if you can do that, I will give you extra credit.
That's awesome. You know, what's really cool about this artist, 'cause I actually recently studied him for my humanities class. He made an architectural building for a mosque. I can't remember which country it was in, but he used like cones, and then he did this beautiful architecture on the inside. But not only was it beautiful with the structure and the skin, but it was functional in that it created like an outdoor AC with how he created it. It was to like cool the air in the area. And I just thought that was really neat.
Let's see. Yeah, here's his mosque.
Oh, it's a different one. Here, let me
Oh
see if
no,
I can.
no, I'm sorry. That was not his mosque. Um, I'm trying to find. That was an AI rendering of what his mosque would look like. I'm sorry.
No,
But yeah,
you're good.
there. Oh, this is I'm sorry. I found it and then I lost it because I clicked on the wrong thing. But yeah, and what was so cool about that is that he was referencing some of the technology that uh, Muslims in North Africa and the Middle East have been using for a long time to create kind of spontaneous air conditioning. But when he did that, what you're talking about, if I remember right, he did something that everybody else thought was impossible. They thought you could only do that by actually physically moving the air. So yeah, very cool stuff. Yeah, I love his work. He also made a Dymaxion moving machine, which was a car that could hold 12 people that was the same footprint of an as an Astrovan, but it would have cost less than a tenth as much, and it would have 10 times more fuel efficiency than Astrovans. And yeah, he wore little cloth wings on his tennis shoes, which I just think is awesome. Anyway, thank you, Kelsey. That is, yeah, very cool. Um, Now I want to share with you guys some examples of this stuff. And I'm hoping you have a better idea of this relationship between structure and skin from seeing those artists, the background artists. But now I want to show you several examples, and we're going to go through these pretty quickly, and I'll tell you why some of them are more successful than others. For this, um, for this assignment, everybody needs to make modules that are about the size of your fist. And yeah, they can be uh, simple geometric modules, And I'm going to show you an image really quick. We're going to visit these again, but these two are good examples of the modules. So this is a very simple one with triangles. Notice they put paper in two spots, the same place, and repeated the module exactly. So there's 8 of them. Here, the module is kind of a box, but it has this notch out. I don't know. You can probably see the notch more clear in that, more clear right there. And on this, on each of these ones, one of the skin pieces is right up against this box kind of structure. Another skin piece is elevated away from it a little bit with toothpicks. But you can see that there is the specific structure that's repeated. And that's what we're doing, 5 to 8 of them. Now, as we look at these student examples, what can you guys tell what the module is on this one? Can everybody see what the module is? It's this pyramid shape right here, and it's repeated over and over again. That's the module. Now, for this assignment, you need to be able to replicate that module several times, play with the ideas of structure and skin so they both feel equally valuable and weighted, important to the piece, and it needs to activate the volume of space around it. I think the module is well constructed. I like this idea of the skin because it's this transparent material, but it's reflective. So it kind of functions almost like, yeah, you can see through it a little bit, but not all the way, not completely. And I like that because even though everything, the skin is everywhere, you can still see the structure. It doesn't hide the structure. What I find that this needs work on is this feels to me way too stable. If you guys are making something like this, rotate these. When you attach them, don't attach them so predictably and solidly as this. Rotate them a little bit. Maybe this one, there's a gap between this edge here and this one or something. Or maybe this one is spun around a little bit. Or maybe this one is attached by one of the points instead of a flat side. Another thing that I find problematic with this is that the person only has 5 of these. With simpler shapes, we need more. So there's more we can do with it. So if your shape is going to be this simple, I would recommend doing at least 8 modules. Now I want to get through a couple of these and then we'll talk about what we've seen. Now this goes back to Anna's question, can you apply color? Well, this person used plastic wrap and then they used marker on the plastic wrap. So if the light hits it in one way, it's reflective and it almost looks like a mirror. From another way, it's obvious that it's clear. And this way, it's obvious that it's covered with marker. And this person also used straws for their structures. Um, I can see a very clear module. They used more modules. It's that four-sided pyramid. Problematically is I don't think that there's enough skin on this. Because yeah, with that color and stuff, it makes it interesting, but the skin should activate your monkey mind. It should hide enough that you're curious and want to look at another side of it. And so I think to improve this one, I would recommend having another piece of skin on each of those um, modules. One thing that this does really well, I think, is activate space. Look at how it's organic how these are attached to each other. They're not just stacked on each other. So I think that satisfies that part pretty well. Now, we look at this one. This is an example of somebody who reworked the thing several times. And I think I've told you guys about, last semester, one of the students reworked one of their sculptures a half a dozen times. Every time they would do it, turn it back in. I'd say, this looks great. Now we need to work on this part. They do that, go back and forth, and they ended up getting a perfect score. It took them a month, but they did it. And I think it just took a month because they would think about it, take it off, rework it for an hour, put it back on, and then it would improve. And then they think about it more. So, it was not a month of constant working. That'd be horrible. But this person, the problem that they had was you can see their module is these four triangles attached side to side. And so it becomes like a fan structure. This project becomes almost impossible if your module is not 3D. So the first time they did this, it was a very flat and boring thing. So we talked about activating volumes of space and even reworking their module. They didn't really want to rework their module. They thought that was good. And so the way they got this to work was notice that these modules are put together. Every one is attached to the others at a completely different angle. And this is just one shot. I think they also took a shot where this point and this point and this point, it was resting on that. So it came out to the side. It was resting on its back. So they were able to move it in different positions, and it just felt like it had a lot more energy. It was no longer flat. So that was another one where they reworked it several. I think they only had to rework it 3 times. Now this is an example of one that does activate space around it. I think it does have a good balance of skin with structure. Almost. I think it should have a couple more pieces of skin. What this one does not address is there is not a regular repeating module. It's almost there, but it's not there. And that's what we got to do. And by almost there, I mean you can see these repeating rectangular structures, shapes, but they're flat rectangles. There's not a three-dimensional module. And so this one did not work. And even if we did allow for flat modules, a single flat panel is not a module. That other one had four triangles that were stuck next to each other. So this one I think satisfies a couple requirements of the assignment, but not the modular. And I think it requires some more skin. Okay, if we look at this one, I think this is a little bit better example of that four-sided pyramid. However, this is really, really tiny, and you can tell the scale means that it's really tiny. This is definitely not the size of your fist for each of the modules. And and even that we can work with different things. Like if you're going to do a smaller module, make even more of them. Don't stop at 8, do 12 or 20 of them. And I think that could work. I think that this is interesting, and I think there is a pretty good balance between structure and skin. I think if we rotated this a little bit, we could see that more. Where I find that this is a little bit problematic is that even though these are attached at different angles, it feels to me like it's not really fully embracing the air around it. It's not activating the space. So I would like to see another module attached to that, maybe attached right here so that it sticks out towards the viewer. Maybe another one attached to the back so it sticks out that way. But I think this does need more modules because it is so tiny. And that's something that just by looking at the grain of the wood and by how the cloth behind it folds, can you guys read that as being very small? Yeah.
Yes. Yeah, definitely.
So, there is such a thing as ocular scale. Now, I think that this is really an interesting one, and I think there's some things that it does really well. Like one is I like the modules. They're predictable. They're obvious that they're modules. I like how two pieces of paper are used on each one, but it varies as to and looks like this one even has three pieces of paper. Some of the things that I find less effective is that this feels like it's put together like bricks, where they're just laid side by side. I think that this would be more successful if, when attaching the cubes, the person putting them together maybe put them at different angles or didn't always attach them in the same way. It seems like the relationship of edge to edge and maintaining right angles between cubes, it feels to me like that's the governing way that this is put together. And so I don't think this is as effective. It doesn't seem to activate space. It doesn't have a lot of energy. And I think the easiest way to fix something like that is by putting the cubes together at different angles and in different positions.
Did you see Anna's question in the chat?
No, thank you. Can the modules be different sizes or do they have to be the same? We're going to look at a couple where the sizes are different. They need to be recognizably similar. And if you do a little bit variation, that's fine. One person's object was rather successful where they used that four-sided pyramid, but they had several of slightly varying sizes, and that seemed to work out. Now, on this one, most of the modules are the same. This is a little bit smaller one, and this was a little bit smaller one. Most of these are about the same size. Some of the variations on this is in addition to having 8 of these four-sided pyramids, they also made several triangles that they stuck out to kind of activate space in different ways. And on this one, I think goes back to Anna's questions about color. The person on this one, they used 2 different colors of types of paper. And I think that that can be really effective and very cool too. One thing I would try to stay away from is using color to avoid to attract the eye and avoid solving physical issues with the object. Like if every one of these sticks was a different color, people get motion sickness just from looking at it, and we don't want to do that. But playing around with color of the paper and stuff, or even using colored straws as a structure, might be something interesting to explore if it doesn't give people motion sickness. Now, this is going back, this it seems to be another example of the block structure like the other one, but I think that this one is a lot more effective. And I want to go back and look at that other block again, the one with all the cubes. If we look at this one, notice how everything is on the exact same plane except for this cube. And just hold that in mind. They're all the same size, same shape, regular modules, but one of the reasons why I think this is not very as effective as it could be is because all of these modules are on the same plane except this one that sticks down. Now, if we go back to that other one that has almost identical modules, the biggest differences, there's 2 differences I want to, or 3 differences that I want you to look at. One is instead of a cube, there's a rectangle. It's a rectangular box. What that allows the person to do is vary quite a bit how they assemble this, even though they are assembling it at right angles still, just like the other one. The difference is this is not all assembled on the same plane with one extra cube stuck on to make it three-dimensional. Because they chose to make this shape a rectangular box as opposed to a cube, then they have them. These two are at one orientation. This is at a right angle, so it sticks up. That it also allows them to make this come out, even though these 2 cubes are forming similar functions coming out from the rest of the body, they come out at very different ways because this feels horizontal and it's poking out, and this is almost more supportive. This, you can see how they stuck more of these out to the sides. So there's one right here that is in the same orientation as this one my mouse is on, and you can kind of see that right here. Then underneath it is another one at this orientation that's sticking out that way. There's one over here that's at this orientation, but it's sticking out, pointing away from us. And the reason why I think that this one is more successful is it activates those different planes. You can see it's pointing in different directions. It doesn't just activate it because the rectangular boxes are pointing different directions. They also have paper on different sides. So it makes you kind of get more involved as to what's going on behind it. Here, the paper is on the far side and the structure is revealed. Here, the paper is on the far side and the structure is revealed. But here, we can see some of the structure here and the paper occludes it. It's in between us and the rest of the structure. Here, the paper is in between us and the rest of the structure. So you can see that they varied where they put the paper to engage the viewer more. Do you guys see all see that?
Yeah, I see what you're saying.
One of the one of my favorite artists is the team. So I guess they're two of my favorite artists, Jean-Claude and Christo. They did a lot of wrapping things with plastic. And what I loved is their artwork is so vitally engaging with people because when, any human being almost, you see something that's wrapped up, what's the first thing you want to do with it?
Open it.
Yes, exactly. It engages our monkey mind. We're curious. We want to find out. Even if we know what it is, there's a part of us that it starts actively imagining what we're going to see when we unwrap it. And that's something that I want you guys to be considering as you're applying the structure and skin. No, so the one previous I really like because it activates all three length, width, and breadth, length, width, and depth of the three-dimensional space, and it's actively engaging with the air around it. This this person is doing something similar to that other one I showed you with the modules are triangles put together, but this feels to me to be way too flat. It's still, yeah, there's a little bit of dimension to it, but dimensionality is not the most important thing. It's the flat triangles that are the most important thing. And this person could definitely improve if they want to keep this kind of module, which I would really discourage. They can attach these in much different ways so that maybe a broad space is attached to a narrow space and at different angles so it pokes out or whatever. And instead of making these so flat, maybe making them so that they ripple a bit or even making them into really tall pyramids, tall and skinny pyramids. But then this is one of the reasons why I'm saying that the module itself, the three-dimensionality of the module is going to make it really easy to fulfill the rest of the requirements. Now, this goes back to what Anna was asking. Can they be varied in size? So this person made uh, a simple prism, but in three different sizes. And I think that this is really interesting, but the person right here is primarily working on two different planes. You have everything is on the same kind of, these three are all on the same kind of plane here. And these three are on the same kind of plane here, and they're attached just at an angle. Now, what would make this more successful is instead of attaching them end to end, maybe take this one, stand it upright, and then find out how many different angles you could attach these others to it. And just kind of play with making that look like not a tree, but like a round, blowing up, exploding ball or something. So yeah, but the reason why this works as different sizes is because they are so similar that you can tell immediately, yes, it's the same shape, it's just a slightly different size. Now this is one, when this person started, it was completely flat and it was only made with triangles. And they developed this small four-sided pyramid and put it together in different configurations until it feels like this kind of weird alien tower thing now. And their skin, you can see some of the skin here. This they sent several pictures. There's several other pictures of this, but you can see that the skin in there. But also these pyramids are small enough that the flat edge almost feels like part of the skin too. And this person also used their glue gun to make strings across. So in some of the pictures, you see that the skin is strings of the hot glue. So that's paper, popsicle sticks, and strings of the hot glue as some of the skins. But this turned out, you can see how, yes, it is a simple thing. Yes, it is small, but they made about 20 to 25 of these things. So we're just seeing one small section of it. Now, I think that this one is really pretty good. The only things that I would add to this was I'd probably make a couple more modules and I put one, attach one right here so that it's pointed towards maybe just attaching the edge right there so that the flat part is towards us. And I would probably put another piece of paper on each of these because each of these modules only have one piece of paper on them. And it feels like there's not an awful lot of skin. Like I put a piece of skin right here to kind of hide that. I put one, a piece of skin on this bottom one where it's resting against the ground, maybe, and maybe on the far side here, because we want in some areas, we want the skin to kind of frame and show off the structure. And in other areas, we want it to hide the structure. So as example of hiding, this red hides the structure. We can't see what's behind it. But this one right here that you just barely see, it allows the rest of the structure to be shown off. And some of them, in other things that we've seen, the skin was on the far side of the structure, so we could really see it. So I want you to be aware of what the skin can do. This one I really like because they have the module itself is again one of these lopsided pyramid structure pieces, but they really took to heart combining it in different ways. There's variations of this, and even though the module is almost identical in all of them, you can't really tell because they really radically changed how they applied the paper. Some of the paper is applied with these ridges glued on it. Some of it is wrapped around. And in some areas, the skin is actually these lattices of toothpicks that are glued on, which gives it a completely different feel in some areas. And I think that this one does a really good job at activating the space around it. Because you can see the modules are put together in such a way that they point in every which direction. This is an example of another small one. This one, it's a little problematic to me because, yeah, they varied size of the modules. That's not a problem. But the module is kind of lost. In some of these, it doesn't feel like it's a repeat of the module. Like this area here, this area here. This is a rectangle. It's not the triangle structure at all. Here's another rectangle, no triangle structure at all. I do like how they use three different kinds of skin, aluminum foil, kind of a reddish paper, and then a black and white dotted paper, which is kind of fun. This one I think is an interesting sculpture, but it doesn't satisfy a lot of the parameters of the assignment. There is not a repeated module. You get this, there's two of these kind of things. Maybe this is a skinny version of this one, and then you get a bunch of boxes. What we want to do is make 5 to 8 modules that look absolutely related to each other. There's very little relation between two pyramids, a skinny rectangle, and then these boxes. And this could also, this is also primarily built on just one plane. So it kind of sidesteps around the activating this volume of space around it too. This is an example of one where they used a lot of color. And this has pictures where they rotated around and took several different pictures. Now, I don't have as much a problem with this. This has a pyramid right here and a pyramid right here, but all the rest of the modules are variations on this box structure. So I don't have a problem with those. I I think that it would benefit from making like smaller cubes and putting those there. But I hope you can see that there's a big difference between this one and the immediately previous one. The one with all the colors, it's not built on one plane. It's almost like a Mobius strip, and it points out and it does different things. It comes towards you, the viewer, points out to the right, points out to the left. It lifts up towards the back. It does different things. It is not the same kind of thing. But again, I would want them to move more towards having every module being a lot more similar. Like this is more of a cube, and I think that I don't have a problem with that. A cube in relationship to this rectangular box thing, not nearly as much of a problem as adding pyramids to. Now this one I think is a really good start. You have the four-sided pyramid, but I think that this needs more skin. It feels like there's a little bit of skin going through here. I think an area of skin right here would be good, an area of skin right here. And I think having a couple more pyramids that poked out towards you and away from you would also be good. And this is also taking, this is not the best background for a photo for your artwork. Because you can see that crease there and the image is not cropped to get rid of that. This one, I think, is another example of one that looks like it has some good potential. It looks like they were trying almost to do a pyramid module, but there's only one of the, well, maybe two of those that I can see. The rest, they've really strayed away from that. And so this doesn't have the module. The other thing I'm seeing is that it only, if we want to count these as modules, and you guys just saw me pick my nose. I am so sorry. That is so embarrassing. And I wasn't picking my nose, I was scratching my nose, but still it looks like I picked it. Anyway, we could say maybe benefit of doubt, there's four modules there, one right here, here, and here. That still doesn't fit the parameters of the assignment, which is 5 to 8. And so, and the skin using those index cards, I think is really interesting how they did that because some of this is smooth and white, some of it has those narrow lines, and I do think that makes it look more interesting. This also doesn't quite impact three-dimensional space and activate it like we want. So looking at those, does that give you a better idea of the kind of thing that we're going for when I point out the good, and the successes and the try-harders? And then I want to go back, see, I'm going to go back to the assignment a little bit. Looking at these three examples, these are three student examples. The one in the middle, I think, is the best example of the repeated module. There's 8 of them. Everybody can see, I hope, that this module is, there's one large triangle and two smaller ones. The two smaller ones have the paper on it. And then when the person put the modules together, they did not stick them just right in line. It spun up this way and then rotated it that way. And we can see the paper is hiding some of the structure right through here and right here. And in other areas, you can see the paper is on the far side of the structure. So we kind of get a feeling that it almost is supporting or framing the structure. And I think that this is a really good balance. It makes us want to engage and look at it a little bit closer and walk around it. And that's ideally what you'd like, to have it activate space enough and make people curious enough that they walk around it but can enjoy it just looking at it straight on too. Now this one, I think it's obvious what the module is. They're repeated. Yes, they're very similar to each other. I think that this would be more successful if all the skin wasn't between us and the structure. We can see some of the structure, but I think I would have liked it if the skin was on the far side of like every other one. So we could see it framing or supporting the structure. And I also see this, it starts away from us, comes towards us, and then moves up and away. I think that this, maybe it's just that this needs to have a different photo taken of it, maybe from the right looking at it so we can see it a little bit more. But I don't feel like this activates space as actively as this one does. Now, this one on the right, I think this activates space beautifully. It feels like it's a shed skin that's flopping around like a live snake. The module is a little problematic until I start looking It looks like the module are these two trapezoids that are put together at the skinny leg, and they're slightly cattywampus. And it looks like every other trapezoid has paper on it. So yeah, we can see what's going on, but I don't think it's as successful as it could be because these trapezoid, we really want the modules to be three-dimensional. And maybe you want to do a trapezoid. If that's the case, making them so that even if they're twisted like this, having these two edges connect and then these two corners connect and these two corners connect so they can become building blocks, I think would read a little bit better, but it would also allow us to put more skin on it. And I think that that's what this needs. I think it's a beautiful job of activating space, but I think it needs more skin on it because I don't feel the balance is there. It feels too like there's too much structure. Can you guys, when I'm talking about it like this, can you guys see the things that I'm describing and talking about?
Yes. Yeah, it makes sense. And then with this last one that you pointed out, it looks really similar to the one that was colorful that you felt like needed more skin to. So it doesn't
Yeah.
surprise me that you felt that way again with this one.
Okay,
Wow.
good. Because sometimes as artists, we do what we do because we don't have the words to talk about it. And that becomes really problematic when we're required to talk about it. It makes it very difficult. And Heidegger and Husserl are two of my favorite philosophers. They really defined phenomenology, which I think is one of the most practical ways of getting our minds to relate with the outside universe. But one of the things that Heidegger said that I really appreciated was at the moment we choose one word, we have chosen to refuse to use thousands of others. And so even if, as we are being precise in our language, we're also shutting off the doors to potential to the other things we potentially could be communicating as well. And I think that most of the time people don't pay attention to that because you're being precise with your words. You think you're communicating really well. But as artists, we don't want people to see things in only just one way. And it's difficult for me to give everybody the same directions and demand that you all produce the same kind of thing because one of the celebrations of art is everybody's uniqueness is transformed into something that other people can see. And so I'm glad that I'm being consistent when I'm talking about the things that fit the assignment, the things that are drifting away. I'm glad that there's consistency there because honestly, I would not be surprised if people were confused. But you guys are artists. You don't have normal brains, so get used to it. But are there any questions? Because I have gone over a little bit, but are there any questions from the stuff that we've looked at today? Okay, it looks like Liv has a question. Okay, oh, you don't. You're all good. Excellent. Very good. When you guys notice drop links or images that don't work, please let me know. I will do whatever I can to fix them. If you are doing a quiz, please feel free to look up the artist's name and their work and find an image. If the image is not on the quiz, like I said, you saw what I see in the quiz. And from my perspective, it looks great. But if you guys are having problems, yeah, just let me know. And it may be something as logging out entirely from your school account and then logging back in, maybe that will be what it takes to reset it. But from my end, I will contact tech support and see what we can do to get things figured out. So, all right. If there's no questions, thank you so much for joining me. Um, I I'm putting out just a plea for those of you who can, please at least get a couple modules done so we can look at the modules next week. And if anybody is really daring um, and can get their project done so we can look at one, please do that as well so we can look at it. Because I
I have,
think it really
I have
helps.
one question for you, real quick. Is there any shapes that you feel like we should stray away from that wouldn't work out with this
Shapes that
project?
have any more than about um, 6 surfaces start becoming
Okay.
problematic to
I'm glad
stack.
I asked that because I was thinking about doing one that had more than that.
Well, but that's not always the case. Uh, like Icosa dodecahedron has 20 sides, but it still is something that you can stack. And essentially it's a cube with the corners cut off,
Okay.
and that can look pretty cool. Um, However, that's going to make it a lot of work on you to do 5 modules,
Yeah, maybe.
you know? And so, but I think that I would like people to think about things in terms of prisms and simple solids, uh,
Okay.
because, and you can do whatever you want, but the reason why I'm thinking of those prisms and simple solids is because they're a lot easier and less time consuming to make several of them. And you may need to make 10 or 12 of these things to get it to work right, to look right for you.
Oh,
But,
I didn't-
and they're also simple to make if you're going to make like 15 simple four-sided pyramids and just put 2 pieces of paper on, or cover of the triangles for each of them with 2 pieces of paper, you can make all those in a uh, relatively quickly, and then play with how to stack them together, and then it makes it a little bit more enjoyable. So, but I would say play around first with sketching and drawing a couple shapes. For you digital artists, play around with different kind of platonic solids and see what you can think of. I think some of the worst ones to do, icosahedron is a 20-sided ball, and a dodecahedron is a 12-sided ball. I think both of those would be bad news. But the Yeah, there's an 8-sided one, it's not a cube. It's 8 sides, and each of the sides is a triangle. That one would work really well, and I forget the name of it right now. But uh, I actually had about 2 years ago, somebody their module was they put 2 rings. They found like 20 rings that were all just about the same size, and their modules were all a ring at each end, and then 5 to 8 uh, skewers attached together. So they made all these barrels that were identical shapes and sizes, but they varied the numbers of uh, uh, pieces connecting the 2 rings. So that was the
yeah,
only real variation.
that's
And
cool.
the on one end they put paper, and on the other hand they put a ring, and then they would also alternate between putting 1 or 2 pieces of paper, and then every other slat was paper around. And it was really fascinating. But this was done by somebody who was probably had absolutely nothing better to do than work on these projects.
Yeah, that's
I,
awesome.
but yeah, it was very cool. So yeah, be creative when you think of the module, but not so creative it bogs you down and demands so much of your time. All
Okay,
right,
appreciate
any questions from Anna or Liv? Okay, Liv has already said she's all good. Anna, you're all good. Okay, great. Guys, thank you so much for joining me today, and I look forward to seeing y'all next week. In the meantime, have a good and safe weekend, and have a great week.
Yeah, you too. See ya.
All right, we'll see you guys.
Bye.